So the last piece of the puzzle for getting this mandolin done is to do a bumblebee inlay for the headstock. It's very subtle bee themes throughout as far as using gold mother of pearl, because it's like honey, things like that. So it's kind of the final task. And so the way I'm going about doing that is the client has a picture of a really cool coin with a bee on it. So I printed it out, went to Kinko's, didn't realize it was going to be this big, so I just scale it down like to 25%. And I made a bunch of copies, all the bees. So I'm going to keep one as like a master copy. And what I've done is I've broken down this picture. It's only going to be the bee itself. It's not going to be all the little symbol thingies. So to me, I broke it down to 4 parts: the 2 wings and the top part of the body and the bottom part of the body. So what I'm then going to do, what I start to do, is I have the pearl I'm going to be using. Some gold mother of pearl, and I'm basically using an X-Acto blade and cutting out those 2 parts. So the 2 wings right here, and then I'm going to take, I guess you couldn't see it, by here I meant here and here, and then I'm going to now cut out the top part of the body and include these little parts of the head there. Apologies in advance if you can't see too well, but I'll explain. I'm just going around with the blade, and I'll leave like a 1 millimeter or 2 border offsetting from the actual part that I'll cut out. I'll add it to the pile of pieces. You can see why you make a lot of copies, because if you're, if you've broken this bee down into 4 parts and you're leaving a little overhang from each part to glue onto the pearl, it's gonna cut off the subsequent parts. So as you can see with the top part, it went into the bottom part there. So that's what I'm gonna go over to, another of the copies, and then just cut out the bottom half of the bee, like so. All right, so I'll put that aside. So we have the 4 parts for the inlay. And then we have the pearl we're going to be using. So this is where I like to look at the pearl, notice any grain or patterns. Sometimes if you put it in a dish of water, you can notice things. To my eye, what stands out is these really cool patterns going this way, kind of like sedimentary rock almost, as far as the layers appear stacked. And so I think that'd be kind of cool to use as like the bee wing. And so you'll have kind of, let's see if I can explain this. To me, it's like you have the wing and the striations and the wing going this way and this way. And then for the body, I want the grain of the pearl to be maybe going a different way. So you can see in this, and maybe you can't see it, but there are layers too. Kind of like on a bee, how it has layers, or kind of the alternating patterns. This piece of pearl kind of has some of that pattern, so it's like that kind of works out pretty cool if you were to do that for the back half, and then you have this angled piece kind of going this way away to kind of create that variation and depth. So I might play around with some more, but that's kind of my general way of thinking. This piece actually looks pretty cool for maybe the thorax type stuff. And again, I tend to overthink like everything when it comes to this part. But I'm just kind of sharing my thought process for this this stage of the game. You know what? I like that. I'm just going to use that. I'm going to pull the trigger on it. So I have my super glue. I'm going to put a little bit right here. And then I'm going to stick that on right there. And of course I stabbed the paper too. There we go. So I'm going to scoot it. And you can see, again, maybe you can't, the little overhang of paper. That's fine because that's not part of the overall pattern. So I'm gonna let that dry. And then I think for the top part of the body, I might do maybe something a little more solid. Like up in that corner, it's more of a solid type of gold. I'm gonna put a little drop of super glue there. And then scoop that right there. All right, I'm gonna slide that away. Now for the wings, I'm gonna use this piece. Jenny the dog is throwing toys at me. That's what that bouncing is. When looking at the pearl, it is good to look at both sides because, you know, just like with tree wood, the grain of the pearl and the layers don't necessarily mean it's going to run all the way through and be consistent. So something like the wings, where I want there to be kind of a noticeable pattern. I'll make sure it's pretty consistent, which it is. And I want the wing pattern to kind of like how that kind of angles. In the camera, you might see kind of these curves like that. That's not grain of the pearl. That's just when they've sanded it, it's just kind of rough milling marks of the pearl blank. If those were natural features of the pearl, I would definitely use those as the wings. That'd be a pretty neat thing. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of hold that about where I'm gonna put it, just to kind of get an idea. And then I try to be aware too of not wasting pearl, so it works out well. If the pattern I want is close to the edge. In this case it's not, but that's okay. I'll still be able to use that for something else. Now I'm gonna want the other wing to kind of be like a book match. So I'm gonna try to just do it around here. Actually, I'm gonna flip this all the way around. No, I'm not gonna do that. So what just happened there, I just flipped it around, and the way the lighting caught my eye made it realize it might look kind of offset. The colors might offset each other, where one would be very bright and the other wing wouldn't. And so I don't want to mess with that. I want both wings to stand out evenly. So I'm actually going to use this grain pattern right here. And then, come on. It's not. There we go. And put it right there. And then I'll just this down. Sometimes if the paper folds up like that, I'll scoot a little bit more super glue underneath of it. And I'll kind of, the paper will wick it up and then kind of hold down. So, all right, so we've got our 4 pieces of the bee head, the bottom, or I guess thorax, and then the 2 wings. I'm also probably going to do some engraving on these pieces once they're actually inlaid into the headstock of the mandolin. So next step, I'm going to let these dry, and then tomorrow morning I'll probably, be the first thing I do in the morning, just cut those out, use the jeweler's saw and do that, and get it inlaid. So close.